your side hobby, you're a magician. You still
Yeah.
you still do the magic tricks at all?
I do them every once in a while. Here in Chesapeake, as we talked about before, it's not that big. So, and everybody's known me since I was 5 years old. So everybody's kind of seen the magic tricks and the card tricks. But what those did for me throughout my career, it was the biggest icebreaker. I remember going into my first big league camp at 19 years old, and Terry Steinbach and Ron Coomer and LaTroy and Torrey Hunter, they're all playing cards, and Kirby Puckett's in the clubhouse. And I kind of waited a couple of weeks and finally got the nerve to just say, "Hey," as they're playing cards, can I show you something with this deck?" And they're like, I mean, they thought I was like the bat boy or something. I've already been in the clubhouse for 2 weeks. They didn't know who the hell I was. But they give me the cards, and I kind of hold court a little bit, do some tricks. And I remember David Ortiz thinking I was black magic. And, he was like running up and down the clubhouse and kind of freaking out a little bit. But it gave me that instant bond with those guys, something to make me understand that I had nerve in the clubhouse to be able to do that and have the guts to do that in front of those guys. So those card tricks served me really well throughout the course of my career.
Jay Horwitz with another edition of Amazing Conversations with Mike Cuddyer, one of the key players on the 2015 NL Championship team. Mike, you know what? Even though you were only with us for a year, and I'm not trying to blow smoke, but you made a lasting impression on me for a lot of reasons. First of all, thank you for joining.
My pleasure, Jay. Thanks for having me. It was like you said, even though it was only 1 year, obviously it was one of the most special years of my career. So, and the way you handled us and the media was a pleasure. So thank you.
But let me tell you why you endeared yourself to me. We had a conversation about signing autographs, first of all. You said that you were at a card show with Harmon Killebrew, one of your idols, and he got on you because you didn't go your whole name, but M and a C together. He said, "Look at my name, Killebrew. You got to take time with the fans and give them what they deserve." Tell
Yeah.
me about that story, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Harmon, obviously you can see, well, right here, there's a painting of him and me in my background in my office. He made a lasting impression on me, and when I was with the Twins, and just the way he treated people. He treated people with respect. Didn't matter who you were, and he wanted your name. He wanted the people that took the time and asked for your autograph and was a fan of yours to be able to come away with something that they know that you signed it. So we were in Mankato, Minnesota. I was doing an autograph signing with him, and you're right. I was just scribbling my name. I was young. I was like 22 years old, and you couldn't tell if it was Michael Cuddyer or Miley Cyrus signed it. So he was after about 300 signatures roll through, and it's just Harmon and me signing. And he says, "Michael, look," he says, "if I see this signature come through the line one more time, see those doors over there, I'm going to walk out of them." So obviously there was another 600 people that needed their memorabilia signed, and I wasn't going to be the one that had to tell them, well, Harmon left because I couldn't take time to sign autograph, when he had like 20 letters in his name and you could read every one. So from that moment on, I started signing my name legibly, and really he had that effect on everybody with the Twins at that time. Torrey Hunter, Justin Morneau, they all started signing so you can read them. And, for me, as I look back on that, it meant more than just the fans knowing that they got your autograph. Your parents, their parents, their parents, you don't know what they went through to create your name, to give you your name, especially the family name. And that's who you are. That's your upbringing. It's all the struggles, the trials and tribulations that your ancestors went through to create you and make you the man or the woman that you are. You should be able to take pride in that. And just that simple fact of signing your name shows that appreciation to your family that came before you and who you are as a person. So it's the least you can do to to show respect to the fans, but also to yourself and to the family that gave you your name.
My great story. So November of 2014, with the recruiting help of one David Wright, you signed a 2-year contract with the Mets. 15 wasn't a great year for you, Mike, but it wasn't an awful year. 258, 10
Yep.
homers, 41 RBIs. You didn't play that much in the postseason. We'll get into that later. But at the end of the year, you decided, I'm going to give money back to the Mets. I don't think I could play anymore. In my 45 years in a game, I've never heard of a guy giving money back off a contract. I mean, you could have played. You didn't hit 090. You didn't strike at 110 times. What went into that decision, Mike, to say 15 now is it for me?
Well, a lot of things went into that decision. First and foremost, I didn't feel physical. I'll even backtrack. At the end of every season, I tried to look at my season and reflect on each season from a mental state, an emotional state, and a physical state. And I always knew that one of those were going to be in a bad state when the season was over. There were some years where my body was just beat up, but emotionally I was still invested, and mentally I was still invested. Again, some seasons where I was just mentally fried, but my body felt good and my heart was still in it. At the end of that 2015 season, reflecting on it after a couple months after we had just gone through the World Series, my body was in shambles. I had core surgery at the end of the season. I was dealing with the double hernia, sports hernia, since out of spring training that season. Got cortisone shots every 6 weeks in that season.
You need
So
to,
my,
right? Your knee
with
and
that,
supply.
my knee
Get your knee
injury,
too.
I had a thumb, my elbow. There was lots of physical ailments through the course of that season where my body was just beat up. My family, my son was in second grade, I believe. So I only got to see them during the summer. I didn't get to see them at all in spring training. The first 3 months of the season, the last 2 months of the season, didn't get to see them. So emotionally, it was a tough season for me. And then mentally, it was a grind. It was a grind, not performing to the level that I expected to perform to, that the Mets expected me to perform to, the fans, and so on. So after those few weeks when the season was over, I reflected and just realized that I wasn't going to be able to be the person or player to all parties involved, to the Mets, to my family, and to myself. And I wasn't going to go through and be a shell of what I expected or what everybody expected of me the next season. Could I have played? Sure, I could have played. Could I have contributed? Sure, I could have contributed. But it wasn't fair it wasn't who the Mets signed. And it wasn't, to myself, it wasn't the guy that I was capable of being. So I decided it was time.
Talk about the year. You hurt your knee in July. Around that time, we make a big trade for Yoenis Cespedes, bring up a young prodigy, Michael Conforto. Instead of, Michael in effect really took your job, but instead of stoking or supporting you, took him to breakfast, sat with him in the locker, told him ins and out of what an approach should be. I mean, how hard was that for you, Mike, to really, to tutor your successor right then in real time?
Well, there's something I tell my kids and the kids that I work with here back in Virginia. What you want to bring in life is value. And that could look different all the time. Every day it could be different. You want to bring value to whoever you're involved with and whoever you're around. At that point in the season, with my knee, with the performance, so to speak, I knew that the best way that I was going to bring value to that team, to the Mets team, to get to where we expected to go and wanted to go, the way I was going to bring value was to be able to make Michael Conforto the best player he could possibly be in his rookie year, and to be the most comfortable that he could be in his rookie year.
And you did
Was
that,
I going to
Mike.
be?
You did that, Mike.
Was I going to be able to bring value off the bench? 100% on the field, and in all of life, sometimes we have to swallow our ego and look and see how we're going to bring value to certain situations. And at that point of the season, we needed Michael Conforto. We needed him to be the best player he could possibly be and be comfortable being a rookie in the major leagues in a pennant race. And it was going to be up to me to be able to help him feel that way. And that's how I was going to be able to bring and create value.
And you created value for my job too. A postseason is a hectic job for a PR guy. Tons of media. I remember going to you. They said, Mike, a lot of the guys who are playing every day, they don't get done early. I need a really go-to guy right after the game, if we win or lose, to help me out. And every time I was there, you went to interview for me, did the interviews, did the phone calls for me, took a lot off my plate. That shows you contributed another way to helping, satisfy a lot of the media demands to get into the World Series, especially in New York.
Sure. And again, that's bringing value and understanding and being able to zoom out, so to speak, and see the big picture of things. And like you mentioned, it's going through a pennant race, especially in New York, it's a demand, and it's a demand on a lot of the players. And at the end of the day, we need them to be able to perform out on the field. So it was tough for the guys every day to be able to make those interviews. So again, you swallow your ego, you be able to wear the darts that get thrown at you, and you just go out and you do your job and you be honest. And that's all I try to do. That's all I could do, is just go out, be honest, give the state of where we are and give the state of where I am, and answer the questions, good or bad.
Well, you were both very good. One player I know you were mentor to, I spoke to the other day, Mr. David Wright, and I didn't realize when he was in 8th grade, he actually went to Great Bridge High School for part of the time because he was moving. He was I just actually forgot what he told me, but he was in the lunchroom the day that they announced over the loudspeaker you were drafted #1 by the Twins, and he gave him hope. I guess you both was in Chesapeake. He went to Hickory, Great Bridge High School. Chesapeake's not a big city. And David told me, see, one of our own get picked #1, gave him inspiration. Hey, I can do this someday. Would you remember about working with David? The young David Wright.
Yeah, well, David, I remember him. We went to the same clinics or camps, so to speak, when we were younger, and I was 4 or 5 years older than David was. As you mentioned, I was a senior when he was an 8th grader, so I didn't really get to work closely with him as a kid. And then when I was in high school, yeah, he was a few years younger than me. But then after I was drafted, it did. And I had another fellow teammate of mine in high school that was also drafted in the first round. And, to be able to see, as you mentioned, Great Bridge, Chesapeake area, it's not that big of an area. And to be able to have 2 first rounders come out, it does give a little bit of a blueprint, so to speak, to some of these younger players to be able to understand that you put in the work, you do what you need to do, and you have a little bit of talent thrown in there. It could happen to you as well. And, he does tell that story quite often, and it's humbling for me that I was able to give him some of that inspiration there early in the years.
Do you ever look back? I know he doesn't now. He lives with Molly and the 3 kids of California. What might have been for him? No injuries, no neck, no back. For me, because he's a close friend, on a Hall of Fame.
No doubt.
There, but now I think he's put it in the back. But there's no doubt in my mind, if he stayed healthy, Hall of Fame numbers for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, Hall of Fame player, Hall of Fame person, did it in the biggest stage that Major League Baseball has to offer, that sports has to offer. And had some challenging years, if we're being honest, with the Mets. And, you talk about me standing in front of the podium during the World Series and things like that. He did it his whole career. Never shied away, 100%. Never backed down, performed when he was healthy. He performed. His numbers speak for themselves. And then in those years where he had trying years, where injuries crept up, he never shied away from those questions either. And that's all you can ask for from your superstar, from your leader, from your captain, your face of the franchise. he did it and did it better than anybody else could have possibly done it.
I would say, a seven-time All-Star, a good player he was, he's 100 times better person, for me. Mike, tell people what you do now. You're a dad, you have two twin daughters, a son, and you work for the Twins, you're assistant with the Twins now?
Yes, yeah. So first and foremost, yeah, my number one job is I'm a dad and a husband. No question about that. As you mentioned, my son Casey, he's a sophomore in high school who plays baseball and goes to Great Bridge High School, the same school I did. My daughters are 12, Maddie and Chloe. They go to Great Bridge Middle School, the same middle school I went to. So yeah, 99% of my day is going to their activities, taking them to their activities and supporting them. I was very fortunate growing up that my parents were able to take me to places, take me to my practices, support me, go watch me play my games. And, that's been one of the biggest joys, if not the biggest joy of my life, is being able to be there for them and see them thrive as adolescents and as teens. Professionally, yes, I am special assistant with the Twins. And also this past year, I was the manager of the 18U national team, and we went to Taiwan and played there.
Mike, what kind of players were the 18? And you also played on the national 18 under
Yeah,
team when you were younger. What kind of players did you coach? Are they high school kids and college kids, or you know?
sure. We had a majority of our team, there was a 20-man roster. Majority of our team were rising seniors. So they're 2024 class. Most of them just graduated. And, I would imagine quite a few of them are going to go pretty high in this year's draft, the Major League Baseball draft. And we had a couple juniors that are now going to be seniors on the team as well. So they were the best of the best that this country had to offer at the 18U level.
A little birdie told me one day you wouldn't be adverse to hooking on as an Olympic, coach the U.S. Olympic team someday. But what are your dreams?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't have a say in that, but that would be something pretty cool. That would be really cool to do, to be able to represent your country in the Olympics in any capacity. So that'd be a lot of fun.
One of my we were with one of my favorite guys with the Twins is LaTroy Hawkins. One of my favorite guys. Yeah, do you see LaTroy a lot? You get back to Minnesota a lot, or how does that
I
work
do.
out?
I get to see LaTroy quite a bit because he's also a special assistant. I definitely see him every spring training. Get to see him when I go to Minneapolis. And I asked him, he was my pitching coach for this 18U national team last year as well. So we were able to go in it together. And, Hawk was, as you mentioned, he's one of your favorites. He's one of my favorites, one of my favorite teammates ever. And, here was a guy my rookie year who, back when I was a rookie, 2001, 2002, it wasn't as it is now. The Twins were kind of ahead of the game as far as making rookies feel comfortable in the clubhouse. There was no hazing in the Twins clubhouse. There was no, hey, rookie, go get my coffee and carry my bags. There was none of that. And LaTroy was one of the guys that kind of spearheaded that. And I always remember looking up to him because here was a guy who had quite a few years in the big leagues and was established and really took time to mentor me my first week in the big leagues and show me where to get my bags when we get off the road and how much to tip the bellman and where to get a cab and don't ride the bus to the park and things that you don't know when you get to the big leagues. You don't know any of that. So to be able to have somebody like LaTroy kind of show me the ropes, so to speak, was very beneficial.
Is he still raising cattle, Mike?
I don't know. I think he's out of the cattle a little bit.
Yeah,
I know he still has his ranch and they're renting out and doing events and things like
yeah,
that. I don't know how much cattle
yeah.
he's still doing.
Mike, could you believe 2025 is 10 years from
Mm,
2015? What a great one we had. Murphy's homers. We
yeah.
sweep the Cubs. Edge out the Dodgers. And I always felt bad if we had won the first game in Kansas City, it might have been a different thing. You look back with fondness on that whole
Oh
postseason.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, just an incredible run, an incredible season, really, to be able to to go and make it through the adversity we had during the regular season, be able to chase the Nationals down the way we did. The moves that Sandy made at the break were enormous. Obviously, Cespedes came and just lit the world on fire that second half. And then the moves that maybe didn't get the headlines, Uribe, Kelly Johnson, those
Right.
guys played huge
Tyler
parts.
Clippard.
And
Tyler
Tyler
Clippard.
Clippard played huge parts.
What do you remember about the day Wilmer cried on the field and endeared himself to Met fans for the next million years?
I couldn't imagine being in his place. And I remember, when he was kind of found out that news, I was in the hallway right by the batting cages with him. And, there's nothing you can say because none of us knew what the actual details were. And, seeing him lose it out there because he knew how special our team was, our clubhouse was, and how close we were and tight we were and the bond that we were able to create from the starting of spring training up to that point. He didn't want to be away from that. And, obviously it all worked out in the end. He was with us and got the experience and came up big and came up huge, had big hits, big homers. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And of course, it's the whole plate, touching his heart with the Mets. I know a kid did on resume, but one of the things I always my your side hobby, you're a magician. You still do the magic tricks at all?
I do them every once in a while. Here in Chesapeake, as we talked about before, it's not that big. So, and everybody's known me since I was 5 years old. So everybody's kind of seen the magic tricks and the card tricks. But what those did for me throughout my career was it was unbelievable. It was the biggest icebreaker. I remember going into my first big league camp at 19 years old, and Terry Steinbach and Ron Coomer and LaTroy and Torrey Hunter, they're all playing cards, and Kirby Puckett's in the clubhouse. And I kind of waited a couple of weeks and finally got the nerve to just say, hey, as they're playing cards, can I show you something with this deck? And they're like, they thought I was like the bat boy or something. I've already been in the clubhouse for 2 weeks. They didn't know who the hell I was. But they give me the cards and I kind of hold court a little bit, do some tricks. And I remember David Ortiz thinking I was black magic. And, he was like running up and down the clubhouse and kind of freaking out a little bit. But it gave me that instant bond with those guys, something to make me understand that I had nerve in the clubhouse to be able to do that and have the guts to do that in front of those guys. So those card tricks served me really well throughout the course of my career.
Well, I always enjoyed watching them, Mike. You know what? In the not too distant future, I'm sure we're to be honoring your player who we mentored, David Wright. I'm sure we're going to ask you to make another return trip to New York. And always a pleasure talking with Mike, and appreciate your time. And we can do anything for you up here. Give me a holler. You're a good man. I always appreciate the year we spent together.
I appreciate it, Jay. That year, 2015, and the New York Mets organization and the fans will always be special to me. So I appreciate you having me back. And if that time comes in the not too distant future, I definitely will be there.
I will give you a holler. And be well. All the best to your family, Mike.